you get to use them. Okay, so the whole chapter is centered around the worksheet, but we're going to talk first about adjustments. So, and the worksheet is really built to help us with adjustments so that we can figure out, the best example is why, or how much of the supplies in the supply cabinet did we use over the month? Because supplies are an asset, right? Supplies are listed in our balance sheet as an asset. Okay, so if we use, let's say that cabinet in the back is full of toner cartridges and it has 12 toner cartridges in them. That would be about $2,400 worth of toner cartridges. Okay, and over the month we use 2 of them. So at the end of the month, we no longer have $2,400 of assets in our cupboard, do we? We only have $2,000 of toner left in our cupboard. So we have to show that we used those supplies. And so up until now, supplies has been an asset, and it remains an asset, but we are going to now have another account that goes with it that's called supplies expense. So at the end of the month, we open the cupboard and we're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8. All right, so then or 10. I think I was going with 12 and 10. So we count, we have 10. So we need to say we used $400 worth of toner cartridges over that month, and we need to expense it. Expense supplies, stuff that you use over and over again to do your job. Okay? In this lab, the things that I buy as the lab supervisor are lots of toner, lots of pen drives, lots of little equipment. I don't buy computers, but I buy little equipment, things that are used and then go away. Okay? Pencils, pens, staples, staplers, stuff like that. Stuff that we use up. Okay? Those are supplies. So at the end of a period, we have to show that we've used this stuff up so that we can accurately have a balance. A balance to move forward with to make our financial statements, our 3 financial statements. All right? So this blank worksheet gives you a place to put your trial balance that for problems that we're going to do, the trial balance is usually given to you. Okay? Then we have a place to do adjusting entries, which are telling how much supplies we really used. We're going to open up a new ball of wax, can of worms, whatever. Open up a new can of worms and talk about prepaid rent. So let's say at the so this is the end of February. Let's say on January 1st we paid, I do this with my storage unit, I paid 3 months of my storage unit rent in January, so I don't have to think about it until April. Okay? Well, if I was doing my own accounting, at the end of January I would say, okay, I used my 1 month of rent on my storage unit, so now I no longer have that cash asset, kind of a cash asset, but an asset sitting there. I only have 2 months left that's already paid. So my asset changed by 1 month. Make sense? So every month we have to look at anything that we've prepaid and see if we've used it up, and rent is the only one that we're going to be doing that with. Okay, so our adjustments will be supplies and prepaid rent, and I'm not thinking of what our normal third one is going to be, but we'll see it shortly. Okay, so we'll have our trial balance, we'll make our adjusting entries in the adjusting entry columns, and then we're going to transfer our balance over to the adjusted trial balance. Okay, so you guys get to use this worksheet for all of your forms instead of just the trial balance. So you'll start with cash, will be a debit, supplies, will be a debit, blah, 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 assets, assets, assets. Then what's our first liability? Accounts payable. So far that's all we've used as a liability. And that'll have a balance over here. And then after accounts payable comes capital. and that has a balance over here, and then we have drawing, that has a balance over here, and then we have fees income, has a balance over here, and then we have expenses, has balances over here. Okay, so that's an example of our trial balance that we've already learned and we know. Okay, so when we make our adjustments, we will reduce supplies by a certain amount, for example here, and we will have an expense called supplies expense that we will have a match for. I'm not even on the right line, I know that, but just kind of giving you the gist of it. We'll have those two numbers that match, so all of your adjusting entries will have two entries like everything else, double entry, so we can balance it out. So you'll make those adjustments, and then when we carry over our adjusted trial balance, we'll take supplies from our trial balance minus what supplies we used to get our new balance over on the adjusted trial balance. So after our few entries of adjusting, then we have a new trial balance, and then with our new trial balance, we're ready to move on to create our income statement and our balance sheet. So it seems like we're missing a financial statement. What are we missing? We have our income statement and we have our balance sheet. What are we missing? Right. Our owner's equity statement is not part of the worksheet. We will still have to make an official income statement, and we will still need to make an official balance sheet, and we will still need to make an official statement of owner's equity. So why go to all of this business with this enormous spreadsheet? We want to go through this work so that we are double, triple, quadruple sure that everything's square before we move into our financial statements that we're going to make and produce for the public, the Board of Trustees, the investors. Okay, so this is just a way for us to be super double sure that everything's right before we go on. And even though it looks kind of overwhelming, it's a great tool. It's not an official financial statement. This is a tool for you, the accounting professional. It's a tool to make sure you're right before you go on. Okay. So then, I need to erase everything. Let me just reopen my sheet. I want it to be blank now. So I can't. Close that one while I'm at it. And reopen the blank sheet. Okay, I want it to be actually blank. At the top of the worksheet, you'll notice that you still would put the name of your company. It's titled a worksheet, and you would put for the period ended or for the month ended or whatever on there. Okay, so what I'd like to do next is get you started. So we talked about adjustments. I want you to look on page, you'll have some more tabs to go here, page 132 and 133. Okay, this shows the first three legs of the worksheet. It shows us the trial balance that usually we're just given the trial balance and we start from there. The next thing is that we have to account for the adjustments. Let's look at these adjustments. So the A adjustment is $500. It's a credit in supplies. And the bottom one, the debit, is in supplies expense. Okay? Do you need your book or do you have it?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay. So supplies expense, remember all expenses are always debit, right? Always debit our expenses. Okay, so that was the A. So obviously we started the month with $1,500 worth of supplies in our cabinet. I just talk about it like that way because I think it's easier to understand. And at the end of the month, we only had $1,000 of stuff left. So we need to expense $500 of our supplies. So that's how we account for it. Okay, the B problem or the B adjustment is in prepaid rent. That's a new account to us. We haven't used it yet. But it's like my storage unit. I paid 3 months at a time, so I don't have to think about it every month. Okay? So when we paid at the beginning, it looks like if you look over at the trial balance, it looks like we paid 2 months of rent at the beginning of December, right? We paid 2 months at the beginning of December, and December's over, so now we've used 4,000 of it, and we will have 4,000 left over for January. Is that what you guys see? All right, so we subtract from prepaid rent the $4,000, and then we have a new account at the bottom called rent expense. That's not new. I guess we've had rent expense, but we've never paid ahead of time. Okay, next we have depreciation. Okay, so let's look at what actually got depreciated. So if you look at line 5 is equipment. Okay, and this is new topic for chapter 5. Line 5 is equipment worth $11,000. Let's say that's one, it's a consulting service. Let's say it's one car. No, that would be an automobile. What would a consulting service own? A really fancy printer. Okay, it's a really $11,000 fancy printer. Okay, but it's equipment. When you buy equipment, you expect it to last a while. Okay? You don't use it up and throw it away. When you're done using your equipment, you probably resell it and try to get some money out of it, and you buy a new one, kind of like your car. Okay? But you always need that big fancy printer, so you have to have that with you. But it's not accurate if forever we say that our big fancy equipment is worth $11,000, because next year, after we've used it for a whole year, it's not worth $11,000 anymore. Okay? So we have this contra account that we keep right with our equipment account. So right under equipment, we have accumulated depreciation for equipment. And that's a way for us to have like how much value of the equipment we're depreciating every year or every month. Okay, so this $183 didn't appear out of nowhere. We use a formula to figure out the depreciated amount, which I'll get to that in a second. I don't want to stop now. Okay, so now look below on depreciation expense on row 15. And there's the other account that goes with this. So we've added accounts to our life this chapter. We have accumulated depreciation to go with our equipment, and we have a depreciation expense to go with our equipment, and we have the prepaid rent is new, and I think that's all that's new. Okay, so now let's go back to page 128. Okay, on page 128, we're shown how to calculate the depreciation. There are many ways to calculate depreciation, and thankfully for our textbook authors, they're only going to have us do the easy one. If we were going on to accounting 2, we would have to learn many ways to do depreciation. But we're going to do the easy one, which if you just look at the formula, you take the cost of the equipment minus the salvage value. Now, how in the world would you know how much your printer, your big fancy printer, would be worth after 5 years? It's a total guess. If it's cars, there's like forms that you can look at to see what it's supposed to be worth in a while. But it's kind of a total guess. And if it's something big, your accountant might help you figure out what that is. Okay? Anyway, the cost minus the salvage value, and then you divide that by the useful life. And if we're calculating monthly depreciation, you would divide by months, not by years. Or you divide by years and then divide that by 12, if that's what you knew. Okay? So once we have gathered this accumulated depreciation over months of time, now we have a way to actually say, look at the top of page 129. Now we have a way to say what our book value is of our big fancy printer. Because now we can say, okay, we bought it at $11,000. We have depreciated 1 month. If we sold it today, on our books, it would be worth $10,817. That's what we would try to get out of it if we had to sell it today. Okay, that's the book value. You guys are a little glazy-eyed, just a little bit. Okay, so next. So what I want to do next is I want to use, I want to show you the plastic pages, because when I was you, sitting in your chair, these pages were very helpful for me. Okay, so a lot of times you're just given your trial balance. Sometimes I print it for you and sometimes I don't. On the test, I'll probably print the trial balance for you so you don't have that one other thing to make sure that balances. It'll start correctly. Okay, then we do our adjustments. Flip the first plastic page. Then we do our adjusted trial balance, so flip the next one. The adjusted trial balance is just carrying over, just doing the math, so we're just carrying over. So cash and accounts receivable just carried straight over, right? Supplies, we have to do a little math. We have to take $500 from $1,500, so we have $1,000 left in supplies. Prepaid rent, we do math, so we have $4,000 left. Equipment stays $11,000, only now we know the real story. So now we have accumulated depreciation that we calculated in our adjustments, and we have to move it over to the adjusted trial balance. Everything else just moves straight over until we get down to supplies expense. No, everything else moves straight over. There's no more math. Okay, so then you double check on your adjusted trial balance that you have the same two totals before you move forward into your income statement. So now do you see why the double check is important at this time? So you don't mess up your adjustments and then have wrong numbers to move into your income statement. So this is assuring that we have correct numbers moving into our income statement, which is the important thing. Okay, now turn the page. So the page that we just flipped over is taking numbers from the top of the worksheet and moving them over to the balance sheet, and the bottom of the worksheet and moving them over to the income statement. Now what I do, and we'll do it on the screen, is it's a worksheet. No one's going to see it but you. I draw a big line between Carolyn Wells drawing and fees income. I take that line and I go all the way across my whole worksheet so that I remember that everything above that is balance sheet and everything below that is income statement. Do you see how that is? And it's not that hard to remember, because now you know that there's numbers associated with all of our accounts, and our accounts go assets, liabilities, owner's equity, revenue, expenses, always. Okay, so after Carolyn Wells drawing, you would put the line, and fees income would start that bottom portion. Okay? So let's get a taste of this. And I want to get a taste of this by looking at the demonstration problem for Chapter 5 that's in your study guide. If I could just get there. Okay, so your demonstration problem starts on page 75. So if we were going to do this on our spreadsheet, we need to look, we're going to look at the, it's all done for you, I know that, but we're going to look at it and get it started, and then we're not going to look at it while we're doing our adjustments. Okay, so on your worksheet, let's go ahead and pop in, so I'm looking at page 76 in the study guide. We're going to pop in your accounts, cash. If you want to print that and handwrite it, that is totally okay. When I popped my my stuff down here, it says net income because we know it's a net income for this particular problem, but it could be a net loss. You don't know that. At this point, you wouldn't know that. You won't know that until we get the income statement finished. So, okay, if you're keeping up with me, which I'm not going very fast, go ahead and plunk in all the numbers for the trial balance. You don't need to use zeros, cents, I mean. And I see I didn't format that for commas, sorry. You can fix that if you'd like. Oh, that's mean. They gave us two numbers that are the same. I think I want to work for this guy. Salary expense was $67,000. You guys know how to use the sum function? Yeah, I know how to use it too, and I got the wrong answer. 454, 515 is correct, so I've typed in a number wrong. 37,350. 50,700. 87, 126, 126.
You put 1,200 instead of 12,000.
Thank you. You have good eyes. From the back of the room. I'm looking at my miniature here. Save if you haven't done that yet. And you can always re-download that. The sum? Oh, how to make a sum?
You were doing
The formula to make the sum? You betcha. So I start with an equal sign and type the word sum. There's 15 ways to do this, okay? Equal sign sum, open parentheses. Then with my mouse, I drag all the numbers that I want to be included in the sum and hit enter. That's the manual way to write the sum function. And I don't care how you do it in Excel. There's a lot of different ways, but you don't want to take the time to go B7 plus B8 plus B9 plus B10. That takes too long. So you want to use the sum function. If you want a one-on-one about some of this, just let me know, Sandra. Oh, I spelled totals wrong. I'm going to have to call my doctor, my eye doctor, and just say, listen, well, I spelled it wrong twice. I need to use this little computer, and I need reading glasses to see this little computer. But I also have to deal with you guys out here and this up here. So I really am going to have to just go with this straight on granny glasses that I can look over and look down with, and I just have to get over it. I'll be wearing granny glasses before the semester's over. So I don't want to move forward until I know we're all ready. You're just going to wait. Oh, yeah. Have you both? You just going to listen?
Yeah.
Well, plus you can watch the recording if you want to. This isn't a real problem that you're going to turn in. It's just a good learning tool. Okay. Thank you for being here. However, next time tell me ahead of time and I'll help you get set up. There, is that better? The buzz was right above your head. You didn't hear it at all?
Nope.
You're going to make a good dad someday then. Because you won't have to hear that stuff. Equals sum parenthesis. Then you'll have it set up for when you go home and do it, you mean? Equals sum parenthesis. And then get on the other side. Now take your mouse and drag all of those potential numbers there.
Can I just do the one parenthesis?
Yes.
Just drag it
All the way down to there. Let go and enter. And it will put the last parenthesis on for you. Yep. So now as you add numbers in here, it'll just keep adding them down below.
Makes it easier.
It goes assets, liabilities, and then what? Like
Assets, liabilities, owner's equity, revenue, expenses. A lower is how one of my students said. That's how they remembered it, a lower. They put an acronym on it. Okay, the only thing extra you have to remember with owner's equity is there's capital and drawing. Okay? The rest of the stuff are straight up, you know, but this has two kinds in the same whole. Your question.
question. If I save this, demo problem to my flash drive, but then I go back in, it's not gonna change my blank worksheet from my,
If you save as and call it demo, it won't change the blank one. But now, know that
Right.
that blank one will stay there forever.
right.
You can always go back and get a fresh blank one if you mess up
Right.
your blank one.
So I can, yeah, so I can go in and go save as.
Yes,
Name it, and then it's a separate
Yes.
sheet from, yeah.
yes.
I know that sounds like
That's not a
total
dumb
silly question.
It's
'cause I
not a
know how
dumb
to do
question.
this.
Not at all. Not at all.
Or you can re-download it again.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You could. The fresh one will always be out there for you if you want it.
Yeah, just like, okay.
But don't download a fresh one soon. Let me go back to my office and format the numbers correctly so that you have commas in your fresh one. That would be nice of me. Okay, let's try to get these adjustments and adjusted trial balance in here, and then we'll call this a day, kind of. I'll get you set up to do the income statement and the balance sheet, but we're gonna run out of time. We're out of time, basically. A couple more minutes. Okay, so back to your demo problem. The words. So on page 75. There are 3 adjustments that we need to make. Okay, the supplies used during the month was $4,425 worth of supplies. So find your supply line, and we used them up, so it's going to be on the credit side. Now you got to watch our authors. Sometimes they say, here's what's left in the cupboard, and sometimes they say, here's what was used. You have to really always stay on track with that. And they do it on purpose to make you think. Sometimes they tell you what's left, and sometimes they tell you what's used. In this case, they told us what was used. So we know we can put 4,425 in there. We have to have a match to it. Down in what account?
Depreciated expense equipment.
No, for supplies expense this time. Yeah, supplies expense. Supplies expense with our match, 4,425. Okay, that was for A. Now, if you were handwriting this, you would put the letter A on there. We don't want to write a letter with our numbers on a worksheet Excel because it will make it a word that we can't add. Okay, so it's just the letter A. B, the amount of prepaid rent account represents a payment made on January 1st for the rent for 12 months. Okay, so if we look back at our prepaid rent, it's $126,000. So we need to figure out what is 1 month's rent. $126,000 divided by 12. What'd you guys get?
$10,500.
$10,500 is our monthly rent. So that's what we need to subtract. So prepaid rent will be reduced by $10,500. And what's our match account? Rent expense, $10,500. You're okay to go. Just watch the video. I know my videos are so exciting. So far it's still recording. We're in good shape. Okay, and then the last adjustment is it says the equipment purchased in January has an estimated useful life of 10 years with no salvage value. The firm uses straight line method of depreciation. Okay, so the straight line method of depreciation, I just need a writing pad here, is, back to my calculator, the purchase value minus the salvage value, which we know is 0, divided by the months that we are going to own it. Okay, so it's a 10-year equipment. So 10 years is 120 months, right? So we would divide the amount of our equipment by 120 months to get our depreciation. So 126,000 divided by 120 months that we plan to own it is 1,050. Check our work. 1,050 is our depreciation. So we need to find accumulated depreciation, not our equipment, just our accumulated depreciation. That's going to be a credit. I already forgot. 1,050. 1,050. And our match is our depreciation expense equipment for 1,050. Now we've made all of our adjusting entries. Now you want to total those. You can take the total we already made and copy it to the right. And you can double check that you're right with the book. 15,975. Okay? That just helps so you know you didn't pop in a wrong number. Okay, just a little time out and talk about depreciation and figuring the depreciation. So let's make an example, because I'm going to the farm for spring break. Let's make an example that this is a farm. So we don't have one line of equipment. We have combine, tractor, baler, swather, everything that's worth a lot of money that lasts a long time would be in its own line. We would also have a separate line for accumulated depreciation for each one of those. So we would have equipment, combine, accumulated depreciation, combine. Then we would have equipment, tractor, and we would even say what tractor it is, the John Deere 5570 or whatever. And then we would have a line for accumulated depreciation, John Deere 5570. We would also have the depreciation expenses individually for each one of our equipment. So we would have depreciation expense combine, depreciation expense tractor, depreciation expense baler, okay? We have to have them all individual so that we can calculate the book value that we were talking about. Okay, so we accumulate that depreciation, that's one number. We subtract that from our original cost of our equipment, and that gives us our book value of the combine. And that's important when a farmer is applying for a loan. They need to know how much their stuff is worth right now. Okay, if they bought a combine and they paid $250,000 for a combine, and I'm not kidding, they're ridiculous. And so if you pay $250,000 for a combine, next year your combine is not worth $250,000. So you use that accumulated depreciation to show your actual value of your stuff now. Okay, so we only have one big fancy printer. That's all we've got in this business, all right? But in the real world, you would have way more. Okay, so then the adjusted trial balance, you can use the math of Excel, or you can use your head or a calculator, whatever you need to do. But let's just pop in the first two because we don't have to do any calculating on the first two. The first one is cash. We just take it straight over from the trial balance to the adjusted trial balance. We could copy it. Here's a quick way to copy it. You just want that number there. So hit the equal sign and click B7, enter. That's a quick way to move it over. Okay? We can do that with the next one. Equal sign, click, enter. Okay, now we have to put in a formula. Okay, so for supplies, our answer is going to be in the debit side. It has to be in the debit side. So now we put a formula. So we start with the equal sign. we begin with the $8,700. So equal sign, click, then hit the minus sign and click on 4425 and then enter. Do we have the right answer? Yes. Okay, the next one just gets moved over. Nope, the next one is calculated, sorry. So same formula, equal sign, click on the 126,000 minus 10,500. We should get 115,500. Okay. The next line, accumulated depreciation equipment, just gets moved over. Equal, click, enter. That's one way. The next line just gets moved over. Same with the next line. Now, you can see here the errors would be easy just by getting off debits and credits line. So now I'm going to shut up and let you just continue down the line. You don't have to do any more math. No more math. Just have to move the numbers over. So make sure if they were a debit, they're still a debit.
So B11.
B11.
Debit underneath the.
Oh, I missed it, didn't I?
Okay, just make sure.
I missed it. I'll blame it on my glasses. It's confusing that they use the same number for two different things. You always know when we're getting an east wind because our windows leak. When you get them all in there, you need a new total. And dang, messed mine up again.
The last 3 on your credit side needs to go on the debit side.
Thank you. Dun, dun, dun. Oh yeah. What did I say about expenses are always on what side? Okay, sorry I didn't tell the people that before I started on the recording, but now we're square. Oh, I better save. Okay, now wherever you're at, can I just get you to pause so I can show you one more thing and then stop the recording? Okay, just stop where you're at and hang on a second. So now remember I talked about the imaginary line that you can use to separate the income statement stuff from the balance sheet stuff. So the income statement stuff starts with fees income. So I'm going to just draw myself an imaginary line. Everything fees income down is going to be part of the income statement, okay? Because it's all revenue and expenses. So I'm going to use doggone it. I'm going to use a top line, and I think I'm even going to color it, so maybe I'll just go to more borders, and I'm going to use a fat top line up here, and I want it to be red, I guess, and okay that. So now I have a visual line going clear across my worksheet that tells me that I'm going to be using the top part will be balance sheet stuff and the bottom part will be income statement stuff. And so now you just move over the numbers from your adjusted trial balance to the appropriate statement area. And then, you know, there was one more plastic sheet that we didn't use when we were looking at the plastic sheets. Then you figure out your net income or your net loss. That's the last thing that you do. So without the numbers clear over there, I can't do that really for you. But you guys have the answer here to compare with. So I think you'll be all right. So I'm going to stop here, save my recording, and let you guys answer any or ask any more questions.